Terrifier 2 was released in 2022, written, directed, edited, and produced by Damien Leone. It was fairly well received, though there are a number of very reasonable comments about the length, which was 138 minutes, or 2 hours and 18 minutes. Typical horror films aim for 90, with some of the most highly regarded coming in shorter, such as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre at 83, or Evil Dead 2 at 84. With that in mind, I decided to do a slash and burn style edit of the film, trying to get it down by at least 45 minutes. After all was said and done, my edit of the film is 1 hour and 33. Still a couple minutes over, but within reason. Let's take a quick look at what I removed and why. To start with, the opening 10 minutes were released on YouTube as a teaser trailer and are very solid. They primarily feature Art the Clown, who is the most interesting and entertaining character, and has relatively little fluff. This was untouched. After that, we meet our human characters, the mother, brother, and sister, Barbara, Jonathan, and Sienna, respectively. I cut most of the scenes involving the mother for a couple of reasons. The first is her death doesn't really have an impact on the characters. The second is that her and Art have little screen time together, and that's what everyone is here to see. The third is the actor, Sarah Voigt, just isn't very good. It's hard to say whether it's the script or direction, but almost all of her interactions are unpleasant, with her shouting at one child or the other. There's a whole subplot about Jonathan acting like a serial killer, or creepy, but it doesn't go anywhere, and is what most of the mother scenes are about. Thus, cut. The first long scene cut out is a dinner between the family, but all it does is establish the relationships, and we see enough of that later on. The next cut scene is a trim down of the dream sequence. While there are some fun moments from it, it is too long by half, so I trimmed a bit less than 2 minutes from it. Due to some unexplained magic, the fire in Sienna's dream causes fire in real life. There is a scene where her mother is shouting at her about it, but again this is cut due to adding little. There are several scenes at the school that I edited down as they push the Jonathan weirdo narrative while not being particularly interesting. This means cutting the first scene of them finding roadkill, and part of the classroom scene, as well as Barbara shouting at him once he gets home. Next is one of the few art scenes that I trimmed, featuring the characters from the first film, as well as the demon child. Ultimately it adds little to the story, and is mostly set up for the next film, so is cut. The next part edited was while Art is busy killing the costume store guy, it cuts to Sienna saying that she was worried or weirded out by the clown. We already know this, and it results in the action feeling choppy. Ultimately it does mean the editing is a bit messier here than other places, but it still largely works. Next I trimmed a few more scenes of the home, as there is another side plot that doesn't go anywhere. Apparently the deceased father of the family drew Art the Clown in his notebook and was researching him, but Art was not supernatural prior to the events of this film, so the explanation doesn't really work. Ultimately it feels out of place and adds little, as well as having additional family drama, so cut it. Another scene with Barbara is cut where she talks about Sienna's costume. Then another when she goes into Jonathan's room, get upset with him, and rips up his notebook. This causes him to run away, and then his mom finds her car TP'd and thinks that he did it even though the timeline doesn't really work. It turns out Art did it, and then he kills her. Jonathan running away doesn't amount to anything, as he then runs back home and finds his mom dead. So it's been re-edited to him sulking in his room, then he comes downstairs and finds Art there, and his mom dead. It works just as well and cuts out a lot of pointless running around. This also meant trimming down some phone calls at the bar, but it's still relatively smooth. Also cut from the bar scene is where Sienna's friend, Brooke, drugs her with MDMA. Prior to this, she was shown to be a decent friend, and it was a bizarre inclusion. Most of the things cut were setups with little to no payoff. After this, a few scenes in the car were trimmed, mostly cutting right from Sienna leaving the car to the couple getting killed by Art. Again, that's what people want to see and where the entertainment is. A few scenes were trimmed to the carnival, as some of the chases were overly long. The final sequence was also recut to no longer have the strange dream scene resurrecting Sienna. Now she just crawls out of the hole and grabs the sword. While this is not as egregious with the rest of the film being shorter, it still felt out of place. And with all those cuts and edits, Terrifier 2 is now about 90 minutes. If you'd like to see the edited version, you can contact me, as I'm unable to just upload it. I hope you've enjoyed this look at editing a film down, and if there are any other films that you'd be interested in having changes to, I would love to take the challenge. Please like, subscribe, and have a nice day.